Hi, I'm Mike Quincy. I'm here at Consumer Reports Auto Test Track, and this is the review of the 2025 Volkswagen ID.Buzz. Unlike the original, the new one, if we can still call it a microbus, doesn't run on flower power, but is instead powered by electricity. But don't kid yourself. There's nothing micro about this microbus. It's huge. It's more like a macrobus. Like many, we were wowed when we saw the concept in 2017 at various auto shows. But truthfully, Volkswagen has been teasing the return of the microbus for more than 2 decades. And no, the Routan, which was a rebadged Chrysler minivan, doesn't count. The ID.Buzz that we rented from Volkswagen has a 6-passenger setup with captain's chairs for the middle row. The standard configuration has seating for 7, with 3 across the middle row and 2 positions in the rear. It competes with traditional minivans and electric mid-sized SUVs, particularly the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid, Toyota Sienna hybrid, and the Kia EV9. It measures 192.4 inches bumper to bumper, making it about a foot shorter than the Chrysler Pacifica, Honda Odyssey, and Toyota Sienna. Pricing starts at $59,995 for the Pro S model and peaks at $69,995 for the all-wheel drive launch-only First Edition. The one we have here today is the Pro S Plus model, which starts at $63,495 for rear-wheel drive and $67,995 for all-wheel drive. It comes really well equipped with a standard head-up display, a 14-speaker 700-watt Harman Kardon sound system, and dual power sliding rear doors and tailgate. It also has the optional electrochromatic panoramic glass roof, which can change from transparent to opaque with a swipe of a finger. So certainly the styling of the ID.Buzz grabs your attention. That's the whole point here. You've got this big flat front. There's like no room for an engine, which gives you an idea that this is certainly an EV. That big VW logo is retro. We also love the two-tone paint scheme. That's a throwback to the 60s. Volkswagen made a point to try to show us the space utilization within the ID.Buzz. You'll notice the short overhangs, front and rear, designed to push the wheels out and maximize interior volume. The body lines create a V-shaped hood, but there's also the sinister LED headlights, which look kind of angry. It's not the image for a model meant to evoke flower power, peace and love. Volkswagen says that with a full charge, rear-wheel drive models will offer 234 miles of EPA estimated range, and the 4Motion all-wheel drive models will offer 231 miles of EPA estimated range. We think a 250-mile range is more competitive here. The base ID.Buzz uses a single motor with 282 horsepower to drive the rear wheels. Propulsion relies on a 91 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery mounted in the floor. There's also a dual-motor, 335 horsepower configuration with all-wheel drive as well. Both power and battery specifications are increased notably from the ID.4. According to Volkswagen, the 91 kilowatt-hour battery can be charged at a rate of up to 200 kilowatts at DC fast charging stations, allowing for 10 to 80% charging in about 26 minutes. According to Volkswagen, the all-wheel drive model will go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in about 6 seconds. We'll know more when we get our own test model. So it's clear that from a styling standpoint, VW absolutely knocked it out of the park. But really, there's lots of other details hidden inside as well. As we've noticed as we crawl around this vehicle, you've got these very typical Volkswagen things. This grab handle right here, that is classic Volkswagen microbus. They had these so people could get in and out of the back seats easier. There's all these little Easter eggs scattered about, like the silhouette of the ID.Buzz right here on the second row. So getting into the ID.Buzz, what we call access, has its own sort of challenges. Right off the bat, the sill is pretty wide, and there's this kind of awkwardly placed step, which puts you up a little bit too high to get in, so you have to kind of slide over. The door is pretty tall, but it's not that wide. So to get into the ID.Buzz, I kind of grab on the steering wheel and scooch myself over. So the interior design of the ID.Buzz is pretty minimalistic. It has a touch of kind of a modern vibe to it, but it's also a little bit boring. It's a lot of hard gray plastics. There's some muted chrome here and some sort of wood-like paneling. So that's nice. It's a decent effort, but it really doesn't reflect just how expensive this car is. I'm talking about, $65,000. I think we expect the interior to be a little bit nicer. When you're seated behind the wheel, you'll notice that the driver instrument panel here is pretty small. It's just a little over 5 inches. So there's not a lot of space to get information the driver usually relies on. However, this particular trim line does get a head-up display, so that helps. So another cool feature about the ID.Buzz interior is a driver adjustable ambient light feature. You can dial in all kinds of groovy colors to get a psychedelic driving experience. I mean, if you're gonna go back to the garden, which they mentioned in the song Woodstock, you might as well have the cool groovy colors to go along with it. Standard equipment includes a 12.9-inch touchscreen to use for audio, climate, as well as a whole bunch of vehicle settings. Now, Volkswagen made a big point to say that it's backlit, the controls are backlit, which is good, but they still rely on sliders to do a whole lot of things. And by sliders, I mean you have to put your finger, say you want to make the climate control hotter, put your finger here and you move it across, and that increases the temperature. This is kind of problematic because using a slider requires a lot more precision, a lot more eyes off the road, so we're not big fans of that. There are also sliders on the buttons on the steering wheel, but at least you can tap those instead of just sliding your finger across like we've experienced in a number of recent Mercedes-Benz models. This is the same infotainment system that we tested with the Volkswagen ID.4, and we found it pretty slow and unintuitive. We also found the location of the front and rear defroster buttons baffling. They're on the dashboard on the left side of the steering column, separate from the rest of the climate controls. This is an unfortunate carryover from other Volkswagens that we've tested. And just like we experienced with our tested ID.4, the ID.Buzz gives the driver just 2 window switches instead of the usual 4 to control the front and rear windows. The driver has to press on a special rear touch capacitive button before the admittedly cool window in a window slides open.
Let's go.
So in the case of most EVs, there's usually a front storage option called a frunk because there's no engine up here. However, in the case of the ID.Buzz, so the lid flops open to give you access to checking some vital fluids. So there's no storage area here, but inside the ID.Buzz is a lot of room for both people and stuff. So to maximize the storage capability of the ID.Buzz, the third row seats actually are removable, but they are very heavy. So if you're going to use your ID.Buzz for hauling stuff and you want a pretty flat loading floor, you need to have the third row seats installed and fold down the second row as well. That gives a pretty uniform area to load cargo. It also helps to have the optional flex board right here, which came with the vehicle that we rented from Volkswagen, which definitely helps to keep everything straight across the boards here. You can't fold them flat into the floor, unfortunately, because of all the battery packs. So the third row seat in the ID.Buzz is actually very spacious. I'm not quite 6 feet tall. There is tons of leg room back here, a decent amount of headroom as well. You do have to kind of scamper behind the second row to get to the third row, but once you're here, you're gonna find cup holders, you're gonna find power points to charge up your devices. It's really not a bad spot to be in. When I think of the ID.Buzz and how much room there is in here, I think of those hotels where they have a courtesy shuttle to the airport, and there's plenty of room for people and stuff. That's kind of the size of the Volkswagen ID.Buzz. Lots of room in the second row, lots of leg room, lots of headroom, pretty comfortable seats. But one of the things that Volkswagen does really well is they often equip their vehicles with these adjustable armrests. And by adjustable, there's a little button on the bottom of the armrest, so you can put it at whatever level that you want. And that is a super cool feature. So one of the clever features in the ID.Buzz is this movable center console, which can be slid back for the second row, third row, as well as first row passengers. And it's actually pretty easy to move. You just hit this button, slide it out. And the movable center console can also be put in place for the third row passengers. However, since I do most of the driving in my house, I like the storage console up here. Another odd quirk of the ID.Buzz is the gear selector. Normally, when you see a stalk coming out of the steering column, you think you might be pulling it down to put it into drive. However, in the case of the ID.Buzz, you actually rotate it forward to put it into drive, you rotate it backwards to put it in reverse, and then hit this button at the end to put it into park. So once you've made it up and inside the ID.Buzz and eventually get into the driver's seat, you'll find a pretty awkward driving position. It's really nice that you're sitting up high, but you have to deal with some crazy visibility issues. When Consumer Reports is evaluating cars, we're looking at visibility, and we often reflect on how thick the front pillars are, or what we call A-pillars. And in the case of the ID.Buzz, you not only have one, but you have like two A-pillars. It's almost like an A-pillar and an A-plus pillar. Anyway, it creates this kind of odd third sail window up front. It's nice to have the glass area, but we would kind of respectfully disagree with Volkswagen when they talk about the great visibility all around the ID.Buzz. It certainly is a little weird seeing out of the front of this microbus. What we also noticed is a vast expanse of a dashboard. I mean, we thought the dashboard in our Tesla Cybertruck is huge. Check out the acreage of the front of the ID.Buzz. It certainly makes it a little hard to see where the front of the car ends. And it's just a massive amount of space. So there aren't a lot of reasonably priced three-row EVs out there. There's the Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, there's the Tesla Model X. On a little bit more of the reasonably priced vehicles, there's also the Kia EV9, all of which Consumer Reports has tested. So while the ID.Buzz does have some unique perspectives of entering that market, it's not exactly uncrowded. Standard safety features include forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic warning, lane departure warning, and lane keeping assistance. Adaptive cruise control and lane centering assistance are also standard. But when you think about the ID.Buzz's size, versatility, the rich heritage of the microbus, then it does have a unique spot. And as we mentioned before, the styling is certainly going to grab people. Minivans have always been functional, but never cool. And Volkswagen has the opportunity to make the ID.Buzz both. From Consumer Reports Test Track, I'm Mike Quincy, sending you peace and love. And for more on EVs, check out consumerreports.org.